Donc on va ensemble, on va d'abord réciter les prières de refuge des 4 illimités et la louange à Manjushri. Et ensuite, on commencera notre petite étude. Sangye chetan soki chona la chanchon parato tane kyapso je tage jinso kipe senan ke chala penchire sangye to parasho sangye chetan soki chona la chanchon parato tane Khelzang Puntso Jinso Kipe Sunan Ge Jola Penchir Songge To Parasho Songge Chetan Soge Chonan La Chancho Parato Tane Khelzang Tage Jinso Kipe Sunan Ge Jola Penchire sangye chopara sho simshin tamshe tewa tong tewe gyu tong tenpa jurje dongere tong dongere ge gyu tong chawa gyurje dongere mebe dewa dampa tong menjere wara jurje yere cha tong tong cha we tong nyo jimbo la nempa chura che per de sa we lama che ta ge che wo pi me ten sho la ka chen chen pa kom ne ji sun te ko son to ge Ngado tsarato sara chum den de jambe yang la ja za lo kong ge lo zhe chen ne chen zhe nye da nan da zha se we jian ye dun ge si xie zi jie ni ge to ka le pan se Quand ta tibé chen jara ma je mun dong le je je don zo gen la po je ta je yin la do je yang ten so cho da cho cho nyo mo ne lo le ge cha cho de je ji Ma je mun zele dong le nyo go jin ye che ze she de nam de ne da jin sa ju ta la sen yen de le zo ge se ta wa kwa che ta che tong che ni kin che da le mun zele jang be yang la de te ten che ji chen la sa ge da le te mo mun ba sha sen ka ton ten je xiong lo ton pa lo zhe po pe non wa ca do so
Hello everyone. We'll be continuing chapter 2, which we began in the most recent course of the Chinese curriculum that was in February. I'll begin by doing a quick review of the outline so that we can recall where we left off. Chapter 2 is entitled The Governing Faculties. It has 3 main parts. The first main part is the nature of governing faculty. and that's the part that we're currently looking at. The second main part is the way in which composite phenomena appear. And the third part is the explanation of causes, conditions, and results. In the first main part, the nature of governing faculty, we saw that there are two subsections. First, the identification of each faculty, and second, establishment of the conclusion on the nature of aspect of the governing faculty's aspect. If you have the outline in front of you, you can see where we are. I'll continue. We saw that the first subsection had three subsections: the meaning of the term of each governing faculty, the precise number, and the third part, the definition of each governing faculty. We covered those parts last time, so now we're working on the second subsection of the first main part, establishment of the conclusion on the nature and aspect of governing faculty. There is a first subsection entitled Presentation of the Complete Classification of These Aspects. The second subsection, the Mode of Acquisition. The third subsection, How many faculties in order to obtain the fruits. And fourth subsection, the mode of possession of the governing faculties. We are currently looking at the first subsection here, the complete classification of their aspects, which itself includes 6 subsections. First subsection, associated and dissociated from factors for descent. Second subsection, full ripening or not. Third subsection, associated with full ripening or not. Fourth subsection, virtuous, etc. And in February we concluded this section, which covered faculties depending on whether they are virtuous, non-virtuous, or undefined. And there are 2 subsections remaining in this complete classification of their aspects. These are the 5th, which domain do they belong to, and 6th, to be abandoned or not to be abandoned. We'll begin the 5th subsection now. Which domain do they belong to? Which realm do they belong to? Pardon me. So here we are, the 5th classification, the 5th point here. In this new classification, we will divide the faculties into the 3 realms. Okay, I put all 22 of them here so that we can review them if you don't have them in mind. We're talking about 22 faculties. We're classifying them in different ways, 6 different ways of classifying them. Here we're looking at the 5th way of classifying the 22 faculties, and then we'll continue with the 6th way of classifying the 22 faculties. I'm going to go over this quickly. The 22 governing faculties are the 5 sense faculties: eye, ear, nose, taste, and touch faculty. Then mental faculty, that's 6. Associated with the body, we have masculine and feminine faculty, that adds 2. Then we have life force faculty, that brings us to 9. Then there are 5 faculties relative to sensations. Physical, that's pleasant, pleasant, mental, physical, unpleasant, mental, unpleasant, and neutral sensation. Then there are three faculties, whose first is confidence. So the first is confidence, then enthusiastic effort, remembrance, discernment, and meditative absorption. The last three are called the three immaculate faculties. The faculty that is knowledge of all that has not been known, the faculty knowledge of all there is to know, and the faculty acquired omniscience. These are the 22 governing faculties that we are classifying with these 6 different points, each of which is a classification. The 5th classification covers the different realms. It will categorize the faculties into the 3 realms. We'll ask ourselves which faculties are present in the desire realm or the sense pleasure realm, which faculties are present in the form realm, and which faculties are present in the formless realm. And so we find this in stanza 12 of chapter 2. On the printout, you have both the outline and the stanzas of the root text. So you can begin with stanza 12, which explains this classification. It tells us, in the desire realm, the immaculate faculties are missing. In the form realm, additionally, the masculine and feminine faculties, as well as unpleasant sensations, are missing. In the formless realm, the other material faculties and the pleasant sensations are likewise missing. So first, we'll look at the desire realm. As the stanza tells us, the immaculate faculties are missing here. There are 3 immaculate faculties, the last 3. The faculty knowledge of all that has not been known, faculty knowledge of all, and the faculty acquired omniscience. These 3 are not present in the desire realm. All of the others are therefore present in the desire realm. So 22 minus 3, there are 19 faculties present in the desire realm. Now we can continue to the form realm. In the form realm, in addition to the 3 immaculate faculties, which were already absent in the desire realm, so these are also absent in the form realm, and in addition to these 3, the masculine faculty, the feminine faculty, the unpleasant physical sensation, and unpleasant mental sensation are also missing. So we can remove 4 more. So we can look, there were 19 present in the desire realm. We take 4 more away, so we come to 15. There are 15 faculties out of 22 that are present in the form realm. So that concerns the form realm. Then we come to the formless realm. In addition to the previous faculties, so we're looking at the faculties that are present in the form realm. Well, in addition to the ones that are missing from the form realm, there are others missing from the formless realm. The 5 material faculties are also missing, as well as pleasant physical and mental sensations. So 8 faculties remain. If we begin with the 15 that were present in the form realm, and we remove the 5 material faculties, and we remove the 2 pleasant sensation faculties, then we come to 8 faculties. And thus, there are 8 faculties present in the formless realm. These 8 include the group of 5, whose first is confidence, mental faculty is present in the formless realm, life force faculty, and neutral sensation. These are the governing faculties that we can find in the formless realm. When we look at the 3 realms and we look at which faculties are present in the 3 realms, there's one constant, which is that the 3 immaculate faculties are not present in any of the 3 realms. That was the classification of the 22 faculties according to the 3 realms, which was the 5th point in the section that we are looking at. This brings us to the 6th and final classification in this point. This classification is entitled to be abandoned or not to be abandoned. This classification is explained in stanza 13. The entirety of this stanza explains this classification. The stanza tells us, mental faculty and the 3 sensations are of 3 types. Unpleasant mental sensation is to be abandoned by the 2 paths. 9 are to be abandoned by the path of meditation. The 5 are likewise susceptible to not being abandoned. 3 are not to be abandoned. So a bit earlier in our studies, we talked about things that are to be abandoned via different paths. There are things, we haven't gone into the details yet. This part will come later in the text, but nevertheless, we talk about these things. There are things to be abandoned by the path of seeing and things to be abandoned by the path of meditation. Here, stanza 13 refers to these things which are to be abandoned. The first line of the stanza says, mental faculty and the 3 sensations are of 3 types. When we talk about the 3 types, this means things that are to be abandoned by the path of seeing. That's the first thing. Second is things to be abandoned by the path of meditation or familiarization. And the third category, things that are not to be abandoned. When we say that the things are of 3 types here, these are the 3 types. So, what can be these 3 types? Mental faculty and the 3 sensations. This makes 4 governing faculties that can be any of these, that can be these 3 types. So we'll go into it again. There's mental faculty and the three sensations, which are the sensation of well-being, pleasant mental sensation, and neutral sensation. These four governing faculties can be of three types. How does this work? How are they of one type or another? If these four faculties are associated with something that is to be abandoned by the path of seeing, so we can consider these four associated with a phenomenon that is to be abandoned by the path of seeing. In this case, these four governing faculties are themselves to be abandoned by the path of seeing. So now we can go through the rest. If these four faculties, mental faculty, well-being sensation, pleasant mental sensation, and neutral sensation, if these four are associated with a phenomenon that is to be abandoned by the path of meditation, then these faculties will also be abandoned on the path of meditation. The third type is if these four faculties are associated with a phenomenon that is not to be abandoned, then these four faculties are likewise not to be abandoned in this case. As the stanza says in the first line, mental faculty and the three sensations are of three types. This is what is meant by this line. We looked at the governing faculties that can be of three types. Now we will look at the ones that can be of two types. The second line says, unpleasant mental sensation is to be abandoned by the two paths. Now we're talking about just one governing faculty, unpleasant mental sensation. In certain cases, it can be abandoned by the path of seeing, and in other cases, by the path of meditation. And there is no case in which it is not to be abandoned. This governing faculty, unpleasant mental sensation, is always to be abandoned. It is only of two types. It cannot be the third type, which is not to be abandoned. That was the second line. Next, we come to the third line. Which tells us 9 are to be abandoned by the path of meditation. This concerns the governing faculties that are only abandoned in one way. This one way is to be abandoned by the path of meditation. out of the 22 governing faculties, this concerns the 7 material faculties. In other words, the 5 sense faculties and the 2 faculties that are the masculine and feminine faculties. So 5 plus 2, 7 material faculties. And here we also find unpleasant physical sensation and life force faculty. Altogether, these come to 9. As the third line says, 9 are to be abandoned by the path of meditation. This concerns these 9 governing faculties. Now we come to the fourth line. There are 2 elements. The first part of the line says the 5 are likewise susceptible to not being abandoned. When we talk about the 5 here, you may have recognized this refers to the group of 5 whose first is confidence. I'll read them again. Confidence, enthusiastic effort, remembrance, discernment, and meditative absorption. So, in which case are they not to be abandoned? In the case where they are dissociated from factors for descent. When these 5 are dissociated from factors for descent, they are not to be abandoned. Indirectly, this means that these 5 faculties, in other cases, can be abandoned. So in which case must they be abandoned? When they are associated with factors for descent. In this case, they are to be abandoned. We may also ask ourselves if they are abandoned when they are associated with factors for descent, which paths abandon them? They are abandoned by the path of meditation. In the case where they are associated with factors for descent. At the end of the fourth line, the root text states this last sentence: 3 are not to be abandoned. The 3 governing faculties that are not to be abandoned are the last 3, the 3 immaculate faculties. These are the faculty that allows for knowing all that has not been known. That one takes a long time to say. That's the first one, not to be abandoned. The second one is the faculty knowledge of all. And the third one is the faculty acquired omniscience. When we conclude this stanza 13, we then conclude the classifications of the governing faculties, the 6 classifications of governing faculties. And with stanza 14, we begin a new point. So now we come to the second point in the point that is entitled Establishment of the Conclusion on the Nature of Governing Faculties Aspect. So we concluded the classification, the complete classification of their aspects, and now we begin the subsection entitled Mode of Acquisition. This part, Mode of Acquisition, has two subsections, Mode of Acquisition in and of itself, and a remark concerning the way that they cease. The first part, the mode of acquisition in and of itself, includes three subsections. Acquisition in the desire realm, or sense-pleasure realm. Acquisition in the form realm. And acquisition in the formless realm. In each realm, we will ask ourselves, how many faculties are we born with? How many faculties do we acquire at birth, whether this is in the case of the desire realm, the form realm, or the formless realm? So we'll first look at this in general. But beforehand, it's necessary to know some basics. And particularly, it's necessary to know that there are 4 modes of rebirth, or ways to be reborn. We can be born through appearance. We can be born from humidity and heat. We can be born from a womb, or we can be born from an egg. So appearance, humidity or moisture and heat, a womb, and an egg. We'll begin by looking at how many faculties we are born with in the desire realm. So this is the first subsection here. And it includes 2 subsections itself, the general point of view and a particular case. Concerning the first subsection, the general point of view, we will consider that in the desire realm we find birth based on 3 manners: moisture and heat, womb, and egg. Generally speaking, we find these 3 types of birth, and it says in the root text, stanza 14, lines 1 and 2. In the desire realm, to begin, beings acquire 2 faculties arising from karmic ripening. In the desire realm, to begin, beings acquire 2 faculties arising from karmic ripening. What is said here is that in terms of these 3 types of birth, a being will come out of the bardo, will connect to a new birth, and at this moment of birth, the being acquires 2 faculties, which are said to be arising from karmic ripening. Which faculties are these? Life force faculty and body faculty. So life force faculty and body faculty at the moment of birth. And then, in addition, based on these 3 types of birth in the desire realm, we also acquire 2 faculties that are not arising from karmic ripening, mental faculty, and neutral sensation. So we have 4 faculties out of the 22. So this concerns the mode of acquisition in the desire realm concerning these 3 types of birth. And then we will look at the next point, which is the particular case, birth by appearance. We'll read the root text. So we saw the first section of the stanza, which reads, "In the desire realm, to begin, beings acquire 2 faculties arising from karmic ripening." And the last part of this stanza explains the particular case. The sentence continues, "which is not the case for beings born by apparition. These last initially possess 6, 7, or 8 faculties." Concerning the explanations, beings born by appearance in the desire realm acquire not 2 faculties at birth, but rather 6, 7, or 8 faculties. Why? Because when one is born due to appearance, by appearing, one doesn't undergo the developmental phases of a fetus. In other words, the body is formed in a single moment. And so all of the faculties that we'll list just after appear at once. When this being is born in the desire realm, at birth they acquire 6 faculties arising from karmic ripening. The 5 sense faculties and life force faculty. That makes 6. And so this concerns a specific case in which a person has no sex faculty, is asexual. However, if this being possesses one sexual organ, either masculine sex faculty or feminine sex faculty, then the being will have 7 faculties at birth. And if the being has both masculine and feminine sex faculty at birth, then they will have 8. When we say that beings born by appearing obtain 6, 7, or 8 faculties at birth, this refers to the faculties arising based on karmic ripening. And there are also 2 faculties that also appear, but which are not based on karmic ripening: mental faculty and neutral sensation. These 2 faculties are always present in the case of birth by appearance. Appearing. This concludes mode of acquisition in the desire realm. And now we come to the point concerning acquisition in the form realm. The root text says at the end of stanza 14 and the 4th line, "In the form realm, 6 are obtained." What are these 6 faculties? They are the same 6 that we saw earlier, and in the form realm there is neither masculine nor feminine faculty. So these 6 are the 5 sense faculties and and life force faculty. So just 6 in the form realm at birth. And next we come to the point on the mode of acquisition in the formless realm. We find this in the very last section of stanza 14 and in the formless 1. In the formless realm, we do not find the 7 material faculties. There we do not find the 5 sense faculties nor the masculine or feminine faculty. Therefore, all that remains is life force faculty. Now we'll take a short 2-minute break to relax a little. And once again, in this case, the final point, this concerns one faculty arising from karmic ripening. We got a short question here. For those who haven't participated in the previous sessions, it's difficult to follow, difficult to understand. And is it possible for us to do something to help everyone understand? Sincerely, I would very much like to, if I were capable of giving a summary and transmitting the meaning of what we've covered previously in the second chapter and the first chapter in a condensed and correct way. I would be so happy to do that. Unfortunately, I don't have that capacity. During exchanges with Jigmé Rinpoché, he confirmed that we don't have this ability to be able to condense the meaning and transmit it with few words that give rise to the necessary understanding in order to continue with study. Both Martin and myself, we lack this ability to sum up the meaning. Nevertheless, the previous sessions of these teachings, the beginning of the second chapter and all of the first chapter, the teachings are available if you participate in the Shinrezi curriculum. Of course, it's a certain amount of time to study, but the information is available. Unfortunately, I can't summarize them for you in a few words or in a short time. I'm so sorry. Unfortunately, I won't be able to fulfill this request. I'll share an analogy. I'm not sure if it's completely appropriate, but when we watch a TV show, when we start the show in the second season, there are a lot of things that we won't understand. A lot of the intrigue or drama will be missing. There's context or general background of the series that we won't understand. Nevertheless, there are things that we'll understand even if we jump in the second season. Of course, it won't be everything, and maybe we'll have to go back to season 1 and to watch and catch up. But the few episodes of season 2 that we watch, nevertheless, we'll be able to understand certain things. Though, of course, the sensation that something's missing is present, and indeed that sensation is present because something is missing. But the fact that information is missing in order to be able to fully understand doesn't prevent us from understanding certain things. And in the moment, we can try to understand what we can, and little by little to go back to the other teachings in order to connect the dots with all of the information and teachings that were given previously. I don't know if that applies to the question, but we're doing our best here to present the second chapter in as clear a way as possible. Martin bounces back by saying, well, usually in the beginning of a new season there is a summary, but that's also what makes this exercise quite particular, that we stick to the words that we received and we don't sum them up. Even ourselves, we haven't had the opportunity to study the whole text from beginning to end a second time. And so there are many things that we need to go back to be able to keep them in mind. And so, of course, naturally, we are not able to summarize something that we haven't ourselves fully integrated. The definition of a faculty comes just a little later. I think it's something that was covered in the first section. Let me see if I can pull it up. A faculty is an unshared cause that produces something. Someone asked a question up front here, no microphone. Please try to ask for the microphone if you have a question. In any case, the person asked if we could not necessarily give a summary, but just share some definitions. For example, what is birth by appearance? And in fact, that particular detail is something that's covered in chapter 3. There's a kind of an unusual pedagogy in the way that this learning occurs, the way this text is. There are many notions that are kind of brought up, briefly pointed to, but that aren't covered in detail. They come later. So it's something you kind of have to get used to when working with this text. That said, Acharya Khelzang Puntso, who gave the explanations of this text, he did give a short summary of what's explained in stanza 14. Very helpful. He said, so we've come to stanza 14, and the first two lines say that beings in the desire realm acquire two faculties there. In this case, we're talking about beings that are born from a womb, or born from heat and moisture, or beings that are born from an egg. Someone's phone is ringing. Could you please turn it off? These three types of beings, when they connect with a new existence, they obtain two faculties arising from karmic ripening, as we saw, body faculty and life force faculty. When beings are born from heat and moisture, from a womb or from an egg, this concerns progressive development, in contrast with birth by appearance, which is immediate physiological development. So that may partly answer some questions. When one is born from heat and moisture, from a womb or from an egg, when we connect with a new existence, all of the material faculties are not immediately present. They develop over time. For example, the eye can appear a month after conception. However, when one is born by appearing in the sense pleasure realm, the desire realm, one immediately has 6 faculties, the 5 sense faculties and life force faculty. And we saw that in this context, there are various possible cases. If the person has no sexual organs, then there are just the 6 faculties. If the person has one, either masculine or feminine, then they have 7 faculties. And if they have both, then this makes 8 faculties. There's a term used here, bisex, what we would probably call hermaphroditic, but they chose not to employ the word hermaphroditic. In any case, it's possible to have both types of sexual organs. So now let's continue for rebirth in the form realm. In the form realm, all beings are born by appearing, which means that at the moment of birth, they have the 6 faculties that we just covered, the 5 sense faculties and life force faculty. In the form realm, there is neither masculine nor feminine faculty. Therefore, we just have, or one just has, 6 faculties. Once again, don't forget that what we've just covered concerns faculties arising from karmic ripening. And following this, there is birth in the formless realm. At birth, one obtains a single faculty arising from karmic ripening, that of life force faculty. And there is a short clarification given at the end when we talk about the mode of acquisition at the beginning of life. This concerns the moment when a being connects with a new existence. This concludes the section on mode of acquisition. Now we come to the second subsection. We saw the mode of acquisition, which faculties are present at the moment of birth. Now we come to the second part, which is entitled A Remark on the Way That They Cease. It is point 1, point 1, point 2, point 2, point 2. A remark on the way that they cease. So now we'll look at end of life, death. This is explained in two parts. There is a general point of view and a particular case concerning possession of virtuous mind. So now we're looking at the way that the faculties cease. We'll begin with the first part, the general point of view, and we will once again look at a classification in terms of the three realms. So thus there are three subsections, beginning in this case with cessation in the formless realm, then cessation in the form realm, and lastly cessation in the desire realm. So we'll look at the realms from the opposite direction than the previous categorization. So we'll begin. We're looking at how the faculties cease. We'll begin with cessation in the formless realm. The question we ask ourselves here is, which faculties cease at the moment of death? Which faculties cease together at once at the moment of death? We find this in the first two lines of stanza 15. In the formless spheres, at the moment of death, life force faculty, mental faculty, and neutral sensation cease simultaneously. So we're studying the moment of death in the formless realm here. In this case, there are three faculties that cease at the same time. These three are life force faculty, mental faculty, and neutral sensation. At the moment of death, in the formless realm, these three cease at the same time. That was concerning the formless realm. Next comes the following point, cessation in the form realm. This point is explained in stanza 15 in the third line, which reads, in the form world, there are 8 faculties that cease simultaneously. At the moment of death, in the form realm, 8 faculties cease at the same time. These 8 faculties are the 5 sense faculties, the same that were obtained at the moment of birth by appearing, plus the last 3, in other words, life force faculty, mental faculty, and neutral sensation. The same 3 that ceased together in the formless realm. So, to repeat this again. There are 8 that cease at the same time. The 5 sense faculties, life force faculty, mental faculty, and neutral sensation. These are the 8 governing faculties that stop at the same time at the moment of death in the form realm. Now we'll look at cessation in the desire realm. The desire realm, or the sense pleasure realm. This section has 2 subsections. First, there is in the case of birth by appearing, and then a second part in the case of birth from the womb. We'll look at these 2 cases concerning cessation in the desire realm. The first case is someone who is born by appearing. At the moment of death, how many faculties will cease? We saw that for these beings born by appearing in the desire realm, at birth, the 5 sense faculties appeared at the same time. For these beings, at death, 8 faculties will cease at the same time. The 4th line of stanza 15 says, and in the desire realm, 10, 9, or 8 faculties. And so, again, here we're looking at the case of a being who is born by appearing. In the desire realm, for someone born by appearing, at the moment that they die, 10, 9, or 8 faculties will cease at the same time. We can see that there are different numbers, and these different numbers are due to the fact that in the desire realm, a being may not have sex faculty, a case where a being will have a single sex faculty, masculine or feminine, and also the case where a being will possess both sexes, masculine and feminine. So we can look at this in some more detail. We can ask ourselves, in which case will 10 faculties cease at the same time, and which are they? When there are 10 at the same time, the ones that cease are the 5 sense faculties, the 2 faculties, masculine and feminine faculty. This makes altogether 7 material faculties. So that's 7, plus life force faculty, plus mental faculty, plus neutral sensation. Thus, 7 plus 3 indeed makes 10 faculties that will cease at the same time for these beings. We can also find cases of 9 faculties that cease at the same time. This concerns the 10 we've just looked at, less either masculine faculty or feminine faculty. In this case, we're looking at a being who has only one sex faculty. For this being, at the moment of death, 9 faculties will cease at the same time. The same logic follows for a being who has 8 faculties that cease at the same time. This concerns the 10 that we initially covered, minus the masculine and feminine faculties, because in this case, a being who has 8 faculties that cease at the same time does not have either of the sexual organs. And just as a reminder, this point concerns being born by appearing. A person born by appearing will experience 10, 9, or 8 faculties that cease at the same time. This was the point concerning a person born by appearing. Next, we come to the point concerning a being born from a womb. So the title of this point is The Case of Birth from a Womb. Now we come to stanza 16. The first line reads, "For those whose death is gradual, 4 cease simultaneously." When we speak of those whose death is gradual, this refers to beings born from a womb. These beings experience a gradual death, and when they die, 4 faculties cease at the same time. The 4 faculties that cease at the same time are life force faculty, mental faculty, neutral sensation, and body faculty. And so the 4 are, again, life force faculty, mental faculty, neutral sensation, and body faculty. Here we're talking about beings that are born from a womb. These beings, as we saw, experience progressive development. They also experience progressive death. When they are born, the material faculties develop progressively. And when they die, there are certain faculties that cease progressively and others that cease together simultaneously. For example, at the moment of death, not the precise, precise moment. At the moment of death, the earth element dissolves. And at the moment of earth element dissolving, the eye, nose, ear, and tongue organs cease. But they don't cease simultaneously. Organ is often a synonym for faculty. When one dies, there is an occurrence called the dissolution of earth element. During this dissolution, the eye, nose, ear, and tongue organs cease, but they do not cease together, they cease progressively. Then there is another dissolution, that of wind element. At this moment, there is simultaneous dissolution of the body faculty, life force faculty, mental faculty, and neutral sensation. There is a progressive phase of cessation that goes with the dissolution of earth element. And concerning the dissolution of wind element, the faculties cease simultaneously. We saw that a being born from a womb acquires certain faculties simultaneously, while others appear progressively, and the same is true during their death. Certain faculties cease progressively, while others cease simultaneously. We have a few minutes left. If you have questions, we will do our best to answer them. I have two short questions. The first is, why in the formless realm we abandon life force faculty? 9 are to be abandoned by the path of meditation, and I don't understand why we have to abandon life force faculty. Why? Okay, so it says that on the path of meditation there are 9 faculties to be abandoned, including life force faculty. Why do we abandon life force faculty? We have life force faculty at the moment when we are reborn, whereas the idea is to go beyond the cycles of rebirth. So we won't have that faculty anymore. Okay, so next one, why when beings are born from a womb they don't have masculine or feminine faculty at birth? Because is it because they're not yet at the age of reproduction? We have sexual organs at birth. We stated that the faculties appear progressively And so the first moment is the moment of conception. That's when the first faculties appear. So we're talking about conception, not birth. We're talking about conception, not when a child comes out of the womb. Complementary piece of information. The term that's used for birth is when a being from the bardo connects with a new existence. That's what's meant by birth here. We talk about the moment that a being appears. The translation term is birth, but in this particular context, that term, birth, refers to the moment when a being in the bardo, or consciousness in the bardo, connects with a new existence. Concerning the progressive arrival, is this connected with the Western idea that the ear is the first functional sense and the last functional sense? In other words, a child hears their mother in the womb, and likewise, when a person is in a coma, hearing is the final sense that remains. And then the other question is more of a suggestion. Could you maybe make a glossary of the different terms so that we could have it at hand to refer to? Thank you. For the first question, indeed, there is a gradual appearance and gradual cessation. You explained how it's explained from another source. I don't precisely recall the first and last faculties that appear and disappear, as I don't have that precisely in mind. I can't necessarily draw a parallel for that. Concerning the second question, your suggestion, in our study group on the Abhidharmakosha, it's also something that we have in mind, that we are progressively working on, but it takes time, and it hasn't been produced in any way that can be shared. It's really a work in progress. It's not finished. Sometimes when we say that it exists but it's not finished, people say, but okay, but you could give us what you've done. But in fact, there's really a lot of gaps. It's not something that has been carried out over a particular section that's complete. In fact, there are a lot of gaps. It's not complete, and it won't necessarily be helpful to you, but it is something that we're working on. Concerning the different faculties that are acquired at the different births, and concerning those that cease, there are many out of the 22 that aren't named. Have you guys thought about why? It's not clearly explained. Why are some brought up, mentioned, and others not? There's a later point concerning the particular case of a virtuous possession of a virtuous mind. And in this case, there are additional faculties. We'll look at that tomorrow. There's also a case in terms of the immaculate faculties, which are, of course, naturally not present at birth. We're looking at a general case here. And in this general case, the faculties that we acquire are the ones that are explained here. And when we talk about faculties acquired at birth, as a reminder, it's helpful to keep in mind that this is the moment when consciousness in the bardo connects to a new existence, and it only lasts for a moment. At other moments, there are other faculties that are present, but in this case, we're talking about which are present at this first moment, and then also which disappear at the final moment of life, which cease at the same time. We saw that in the formless realm there are some that are present that cease at the same time, and we saw in the form realm there are certain faculties that are present that cease at the same time, and we saw in the desire realm that there are certain ones that will cease prior to this moment, and there are just certain ones that cease at this final moment. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if at this final moment there are 4 that cease, then those were the only ones that this person ever had. It just means that these 4 are the ones that remain at the final moment. That's our time for today. We'll have time for questions in the upcoming days as well. Sanam di samche zikpani tonye nepe tonam pamche kekana chi balak chupai sibe sone towa shu.